So good afternoon, folks. My name is Ian Boer and welcome to another Sparker Nation conversation. A Sparker Nation, for those of you who don't know and might remember, it's a spark that excites passion, that leads to action, that changes what's normal. And I'm no doubt that we're going to have a lot of sparks today because my very special guest is Simone. Simone's the acting manager of the leisure and recreation for the city of Greater Geelong, and she has a few of her staff today. So welcome to all. I'm sure it's going to be a fabulous conversation. We have a bit of tradition now with these conversations going back a few years. Today we're looking at the subject of the keys to a fulfilled life. So Simone, I'm going to straight away hand over to you to give us a little introduction and to get our conversation rolling.
No problems. So if we go back to a couple of months ago, Ian asked me to come and host one of these conversations, and I put forward a variety of topics. And one of those has been the keys to life fulfillment. And particularly that's been something I've been working quite hard on, particularly during this COVID time as well. So we felt this was an appropriate topic to have discussions with the group today. So, and part of the Sparker Nation conversation as well is that I'll be asking you all some questions as well. So the first question that I had, that I posed myself, that I also want to pose to all of you is, what does fulfillment mean to you? And if you think about that, fulfillment, what does that mean? So I just want you to spend 10 seconds pondering, what does it mean to you? And as you're thinking about that, what are the words that may be coming to people's minds? Is there any words that are coming to people's minds that you'd like to share? And you can unmute yourself for that. Jamie?
Completed.
Paul?
Satisfied.
Lynn?
Purpose.
Lovely. Darren?
I had satisfied as well, but also well-rounded.
Lovely. Brian?
Content.
They're all beautiful words. Bev?
Authentic.
Lovely. David?
Valued.
Beautiful. Ian?
I had joy was the first one that came to mind.
Tony, if you can unmute yourself.
Achievement.
Beautiful. And Donovan, if you can unmute yourself too.
Yeah, sure. I think some of my words have been chosen, but I don't know if purpose was covered already by anyone else.
Yeah.
Perfect. Lovely. So all of those words came up when I thought about fulfillment. And ultimately for me, it comes down to a combination of 4 things. The first one is to live your purpose. The second one is to find happiness and joy in the current moment, in the present. The third is to appreciate what I have. And the fourth is to look after yourself. Now, what I mean by look after yourself, and this is me contextually, is what determines looking after myself is that I continue to grow and develop as a person. And that's spiritually, mentally and emotionally and physically, almost in that beautiful Venn diagram as such. So when I look at that is exactly what fulfillment means to me. And I could hear a lot of those words coming through from each of your answers as well. But the question then becomes is, well, what does it actually look like? So how do you get to that contentness, or how do you get to that achievement, or how do you get to that purpose or that joy? How do you get to that appreciation, or how do you get to growing and developing as a person or looking after yourself? So how do you get to that fulfillment? first and foremost, and I like to caveat in this, and I like to put metaphors as well. You need to water the plant, and the plant is you. So the first one, live your purpose. What does that actually look like? First off, you have to discover your purpose. And note that I say discover. It's about unwrapping that and unwrapping that purpose for yourself. It's not about inventing the purpose. And discovery of your purpose can take months, sometimes years, as each and every one of you are shaped by your life experiences as well. And your purpose can weave in and out. There's usually a grounding theme to it. So the questions that I ask you as you think about what might your purpose be, or I know that Ian likes to call it essence, what's your essence, is what are you called to? What stirs or moves you? What's going on in the world? And when I say the world, this can be out there in the environment or your world. So you can take it in two contexts as well, that makes you want to get involved. So what's calling you to get involved? And what do you feel that you're responsible for? So what does that look like to you? And what you need to do as you start to answer some of those questions is you need to ensure that your work and your life essentially revolve around that. And what does that actually look like? So an example for that for me is if we wind back myself, say 10 years, was that I wanted to have a positive impact on the world. I wanted to have a positive impact on people. And I felt that that was my purpose. That has moved and shifted as I do various jobs, different job callings as it goes. But what I've actually been able to do is reframe that purpose and make it much clearer. And that purpose has moved from about 10 to 15 years ago around make a positive impact on the world, being people and very much people-centered, into something around creating the space to grow, to nurture, and catalyze change and transformation.
You just froze up a bit there, Simone. So while you're,
So as we,
there you go. You just
yeah,
froze up a bit there.
please, no worries. So as I sort of talk you through a bit of that around some of my discovery and the ensuring that your work and your life revolve around that, what does that actually look like in real life? How are you doing that in your personal life, and how are you showing up in your work life? I might just pause there because I know I've thrown a whole heap of information out to you just in that moment around what does fulfillment mean? How do you start to get to fulfillment and purpose? And open it up for any questions, comments, thoughts that people are thinking right at this point in time.
It's a real smorgasbord, Simone. Yeah. I thank you for that introduction. I couldn't help but think about another word sort of kept coming into my mind. It's the word bliss, which Joseph Campbell was famous for. And the best explanation I know of bliss is it's doing what you cannot not do. Mm. And I always try and remind myself, because I'm called to help other people to see, unearth, magnify, and enhance their essence. And every day I'm trying to remind myself that that's what I'm here to do. And it never takes long, because as soon as you talk to someone, you see it straight away, because each and every person is a unique, one of a kind human being. And I'm entranced, enamored, in awe of human beings because of that uniqueness. Everyone we meet, absolute one of a kind. And so that, in a way, is kind of easy for me to follow my bliss or fulfill my purpose, because I'm looking at an individual all the time, a person that's never existed before. So it's very hard not to love a one-off.
Absolutely.
I had a moment this morning, Simone, which I don't mind sharing. I have a very small team here in Singapore, and one of them is about to go away for a month. He's actually when they close the borders here, and a lot of workers here come across the border from Malaysia, or used to every day. And when they closed the borders, they had to make a choice about which side of the border they were going to stay on, and those that wanted to keep working had to stay in Singapore. So this guy who works for me hasn't seen his family since March, and he's got 2 small kids. So he's finally able to, under a special arrangement, able to go back to Malaysia, and we've allowed him to do that. And we're allowing him to take a month and stay on full pay and go and see his family. But what happened this morning was it's his last day before he leaves tomorrow. So I just took some morning tea down to the team. They all work on site, and I just sat with them, and we just enjoyed their break time together, and just had a great conversation. And I felt fully present in that moment. And as I was walking away, I just felt like that is exactly what I'm meant to be doing right now, is just giving my time and energy to those 4 guys, because there's not a lot outside of that I can be doing. But it just was a moment where I just felt fulfilled. I felt like that's exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Absolutely. That's such a beautiful example as well, Paul, around fulfillment. That was exactly where you were meant to be at that time, and fully present and enjoying the moment. Brian, I know you've got your unmute, so have you got something wonderful to say?
Wasn't planning on it, but one of the things that I'm looking at is a little bit like Edward de Bono. Depending on where I'm at and what role I'm doing, is my purpose can be quite different. As a father, husband, breadwinner, emotional support to my family is a very different purpose than it is when I'm out recreationally or socially, exercising, which again is very different to when I'm at work. So when you look at everything, I often will have different hats, and the purposes, or my purpose is very different when it comes to my family compared to my work or my social time. And I think it's okay to be dynamic and fit the purpose into the situation that you're in at that time, as long as you're not challenging your morals.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with a full life as well. And note that I don't call it busy life, it's full. Because that is around fulfillment too. Other thoughts and comments that people are playing within their minds, having this conversation?
I think for me, and I've written it in bold letters. I mean, I loved you, or you have to water the plant, and the plant being you, because my purpose probably hasn't changed a lot in my life, whether it be personal or business or home, and that's to bring joy to others, which is to ensure where humanly possible, to make everyone around me feel happy, supported, and valued. Some of you know some of my history with my wife and son who have challenges in life, and so my place is to bring them joy and happiness as much as possible, and then I bring that to work with me every day. But I continually need to start watering that plant, so and looking after myself. But yeah, I like to make others happy. So that's my purpose in life, is to ensure that those around me can feel as happy and supported as they possibly can.
And it's a really simple purpose as well, Jamie, for you to bring to life. It's a beautiful purpose. Bev.
I've loved the journey of being able to sort of discover my purpose over in recent years. which is to empower people and business to authentically thrive in harmony with the planet. And it's been awesome to, once I've got clarity around that, and I have my little affirmations and sort of focus on that each day, I can make decisions that take me toward that, really informed decisions. And it's amazing how things unfold in front of you. Like the role I'm doing at the moment, that just came up, and it's just so aligned with my purpose and what I needed to do to challenge myself also. So I love that once you get clarity around your purpose, that things just unfold beautifully.
And for the purposes, and I know what your role is, Bev, but for the purposes of letting the rest of the group know, would you mind just explaining your role in a 30-second snapshot?
So I've taken on a strategy officer role with City of Greater Geelong, primarily to implement the sustainability framework across the organisation, and to help with a number of other organisational projects as well. So it really aligns with my doing people and business in harmony with the environment. So it's awesome, very exciting.
Absolutely, and that is an example of being able to live it during your workplace as well. So beautiful. And when I talk about, as I'm talking through about, I guess, the different keys around what fulfillment means to me, what's resonating with people?
One of the things that pops up there, I think Bev's really nailed something that I think is really critical, is the clearer we get about purpose, the more fulfilled we become. It's kind of a, there's a real synergy there. If we're unclear about purpose, the less kind of fulfilled we are. That's my personal experience, but also the experience of people that work there. So I think you're on it, Bev. And I might congratulate you, Bev. It tells in your face as well when you talk about it. Jamie the same. There's a kind of a, it's in the, there's joy there.
Yeah, I've found that, and what it's helped too is to be really grateful for the things that are already aligned in my life. Once you get clear on what that big picture is, you get really clear about how many things are already aligned with that in your life.
Yeah,
gratitude's huge.
Yeah, Paul, Jamie, the same thing. I saw it in your eyes when you were talking about those things. It's and I think when we're in a leadership role, other people see that joy as well, and that inspires them.
Absolutely. And if you haven't discovered or unwrapped or uncovered your purpose, spend time thinking about it. What are you called to? What is it that, really gets you going? What are you excited about? What stirs and what moves you? What do you feel responsible for? And that's some of the questions you can just sit down in an afternoon, start, writing answers to, and then, let it sit, let it percolate, or let it compost for a bit. And as I've said, in order for my purpose to get clear, it's taken me 10 years to keep uncovering it, keep digging at it, keep pulling it apart. It may come to you immediately, it may not come to you immediately in that space. So the next, yeah.
Oh no, sorry. I was just going to say. I think the accepting and appreciating what you have is also a big one.
Absolutely.
Probably COVID's helped push me a bit better into that space, but probably 18 months, 2 years ago, I don't know what the light bulb moment was, but it was sort of, it was rather than saying, geez, I want a bigger house and I want a better car and I want a nicer boat. It was actually, I looked and went, geez, I've got a beautiful home and my boat still, doesn't matter whether it's bigger, it still catches the same amount of fish. And, and that was a moment for me to go, I'm 48 years of age at that point. I've worked hard, I've achieved what I've got. I need to appreciate it a little bit more, rather than continuing to say, well, where can I get better, from a personal perspective? Because I don't go that way at work, if you know what I mean. So.
And that's just a really beautiful encapsulation, Jamie, around accepting and appreciating what you have, counting your blessings. So what do you have? What do you have, both from a health perspective, your family, your relationships perspective, as well as, the physical perspective. Are you safe? Is your family safe? Is are you living in a place that provides that safety and that stability? Are you able to have meals every day, each and every day? Are they of a fair nutrition or not? What does that actually look like? Do you have relationships? What relationships do you have? How close are you with those relationships? How good are those relationships? How can they be better? And it's about thanking yourself and thanking and I guess gratitude and appreciating for all of that. And if you don't have, potentially something that you might not be the best in your life, how do you reframe that? So if you have a relationship that's slightly rocky, well, what have you learnt from that relationship? What has that person or that relationship given you? And as soon as you start to accept and appreciate what you do have in that relationship, you get better. The relationship naturally gets better because you're putting really positive thoughts in that space. And it can be something as simple as, once again, writing down within a reframing exercise of that particular relationship or that potential deficit that you may have in your life, and sitting down, well, what am I thankful for in this area? What have I learned from it? What have I learned from it that I'm carrying through to, other parts of my life? What is actually good about it as well? And it's that reframing process. And you are right, Jamie, in a way, you have sat down very considerately to sit down and count your blessings. What do I have? What am I thankful for now? What does that look like?
It's really Rabbi Satchel's famous line, isn't it, that happiness is not having what we want, it's wanting what we have.
Can I say, Simone, that I think all the comments have been really good. My purpose is actually taking all of those things to the business level to help businesses improve by valuing and appreciating their employees. But what frustrates me many, many times every year is that managers of organizations do not ask their employees what their purpose is in order to maximize the effectiveness and motivation of those employees. And I'm not going to say this just because he's online, but Paul at First Contact is one of the exceptions to that. He runs an organization that really appreciates and values their employees and what they do. And as a result, they maximize the benefits of the input from those employees. But so many businesses don't do that. And I think while we all have a purpose, if that's not being fulfilled at work, where we spend a lot of our time, it makes the rest of our lives very difficult.
I could not agree with you more there, Tony. And I actually have a couple of my employees on the line here. So guess where I'm coming over the next week or two with you guys? Because you've actually highlighted a something that I haven't really spoken too much about with my own current team. So I do really thank you for giving me a little a friendly reminder to do that. So I'll be coming to my team over the next week or two to really try to tease that out to make sure that we are maximizing each other's purposes. So I'd like to also throw it out to the group is, what do you think about the point that Tony has just brought up?
I couldn't agree more. I'm a big advocate for strengths-based working. And even if it's not a person's primary purpose and passion, if you can draw on people's strengths and interests in the workplace, for one, they're going to be more engaged and they're going to be more productive, and it's just an overall happier workplace. So the benefits are endless.
Yeah, and thanks for your comments, Tony. But yeah, I've kind of made it my mission to help people embrace purpose and get excited by it, and then find fulfillment through delivering on that purpose.
And let me say, Tony, so that you don't have to, that Tony has a great system, a piece of software that really helps with this whole process.
Yeah.
And Paul would endorse that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a key part of our employee reward program, actually, by rewarding the types of behaviour that we want to see people repeat, obviously, but doing it in a way that is instant and meaningful to them.
And Lo, I agree with you, Tony, as I think you know I would. I think the exciting thing is that this has changed. When I began doing this work 30 years ago, there wasn't anyone doing this pretty much. And there's a lot more. I see a lot more now than ever before. And I'm encouraged by that. And I think, Simone, although you're in a new role and new to some of your employees, I think you do live what we're talking about. I know Jamie does, and I know David does, and I know Donovan does. And so we're in a world that I think, although you're right, Tony, I think there is a swell that's increasing. More and more people are coming to realise that if you appreciate people, they respond in kind, and performance improves. And this has, of course, been known for over 100 years. That famous psychologist, William James, he said that the deepest human desire, so not just any old desire, but the deepest human desire is to feel appreciated. Mm. And so I think, having conversations with our employees along the lines of the conversation that Simone's leading us through today helps that whole process. And I know from working with lots of different people, when people feel appreciated, they do their best work.
Apparently, if you're the CEO of Australia Post, you might have appreciated people too much.
Well, interestingly, I know privately that she's a highly regarded CEO, and we'll get a job in 5 seconds flat.
Yeah.
And I think she's been underappreciated and badly treated.
I'd agree.
It's my own view, but she'll find her feet, and Australia Post will be the loser.
David, following off the back of all that.
Yeah, so the comment before about working towards strengths is a great one. How I've sought to manage teams, and I've been managing them more, even within board environments where we've got not-for-profit groups brought together, which is what I'm mainly doing a lot of at the moment. I think focusing on the strengths is really important, but also you can couple that with what they enjoy as well. So if you can have it so it's something they're good at, but they also enjoy it. Like I'm good at lots of things, but I don't necessarily enjoy them, which is what was happening to me in my prior role. So I was getting to do lots of things I was good at, but it wasn't fulfilling me. And I think it was off the back of what Ian said earlier about matching that joy aspect of it. If you're thinking, oh, yeah, I'm good at this, I already know that, and then you're not getting that suitable acknowledgement. So the three things go together. I think doing things you're good at, doing things you really enjoy, and then feeling acknowledged. But I think the fourth one is feeling extended as well. I think doing things that are challenging you, and you're not just doing things you're good at and you're going through the motions. You're actually doing things that are making you better all the time. And then each day, if you're doing things or within a not-for-profit group, you're always continually improving. You're going to be feeling much more fulfilled and valued. And I like Ian's triangle about the, hopefully I'll get this right, say the living your values, feeling value, you'll add value. I think that triangle is a perfect example of gaining that fulfillment off the back of that. But I think it has to start with focusing on your strengths first, worry less on the weaknesses and focus more on the strengths.
I couldn't agree more. I'm very much a strengths-based person, and it is really around what is it that you're good at, and what is it that gives you joy at the same time. It's that beautiful intersection as well, that really lights people up. And then when you think about it, what is, how do you find joy and happiness in your life? What does it actually look like? And I've asked several people that, and it's fascinating, the responses that I get. In some cases, I get blank faces because they've never taken the time to actually think about what is it that gives them joy and happiness in their life. How do you want to live your life? And so often people get in the, I guess, the ruck or the rut, sorry, of routine. And it's amazing how quickly that routine quickly overtakes your life. And that routine may be through, a single point or several points along the way that routine has actually taken over your life. So what I challenge to everyone here is, what does your ideal day look like? What does your ideal day, week, month look like? Write it out. What does it actually look like to you? And so some examples of what it looks like to me is a full night's sleep. I don't always get that, but because I have a little person who wakes up in the middle of the night. But if she does wake up in the middle of the night, I absolutely 100% go in there and tend to her. My ideal day, and I've got a whole checklist of stuff, is that I have a smoothie for breakfast, of which some of you have seen me have, and it's got about 25 different vegetables in that. It's to have quality time with my little person. It's to have quality time with my partner. It's to have 10,000 steps a day. My ideal day would be to have a massage and a facial at a day spa. Absolutely, definitely. Obviously, I can't do that every day. So what do? And this is, I guess, what you would call where you start to introduce rituals into your day so that you could get moments of that. I have myself a little spritz, and once or twice a day, I'll just spend maybe 20 seconds. I'll stop everything and I'll literally just spray that. And it's the smell of a day spa and facial and massage. Might only get there, once every couple of months, but I've got it with me every day. The other one is, once again, is that I have a hand cream for myself that I, want maybe put on. And it's that ritual that I do is I stop myself for 20 seconds, I put the hand cream on. And it's a little ritual that I do to bring in that idea that I'm getting a massage or facial at a day spa each and every day. My perfect days, once again, it's a bit of a ritual, a cup of tea when the little person goes to bed. And tea can be quite a ritual experience as well, if you go back to the ancient beginnings of that. And then there's creativity. And what does that creativity look like for me? So creativity is very, very important. And it can be, any type of, I guess, drawings like that. Or it could be plants. Or it could be anything such as making up, a new something new with my daughter, or making up a new activity or game with my daughter. It is reading and self-development, having lunch, being either a salad or at my local restaurant. That's actually my perfect day. Really, 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 really good coffee. And then changing as many lives as possible. So by sitting down and actually writing out, what does your perfect day look like? Having a checklist within that, you then actually you might not be able to live your perfect day every day, but you can bring elements of that perfection into your everyday life. And that starts to help you have, I guess, joy and happiness in virtually every moment as you move yourself towards that. The other thing is, write out your happiness list. Sit down and write 50 things that make you happy. What makes you happy? I tried to challenge myself to 25 and I went, that's too easy. So I challenged myself to 50. And so what I do with that, my 50 pieces of happiness or my happiness list, is that I review it every couple of months. I add more stuff in. And also it reminds me of things that I like to do. An example is I've got a particular friend who I like to go on short courses with. So I reviewed it about 2 months ago, that happiness list, and went, oh, I haven't done that with her for probably about 12 months or 14 or 15 months. Let's do a course together. And so we've enrolled in a little online permaculture course. Once again, that's about that growing, that development, but also that creativity. And yeah, and this is there for you sitting down and looking at how is it that you want to live your life, and being present and finding the joy and happiness in all those small elements. So what I've given you there is just a few examples of how I pretty much live the perfect day for myself, and some of the rituals I keep. And I also have visions, and it's about trying to work yourself towards those visions as well. Be aware that, you know, I'm on about my 3rd or 4th little vision board that I have. My first vision board wasn't that advanced, but the more I'm working towards it and the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm adding in as well of where I want to be in 5 years' time. What does my ultimate life look like in 5 years' time? So I thought, that's the next piece that I was bringing to the group. Is there any thoughts around that? Ian, you're on mute there.
Click the button, but nothing happened. There we go. I think there's a lot of proven principles here, Simone. I was reflecting on the French call purpose raison d'etre. You know, the reason we get up in the morning. The Japanese call it aikagi. And the research into aikagi, if you just take a moment to look at it, the longest living, happiest people live in on the island of, I think it's pronounced Okinawa. And in one of the books I read on aikagi, one of the reasons is these people have all of these things you're talking about, Simone. The reason they live, I think the average age there is 108. And one of the key reasons, according to research, is they do all the things that you just talked about. So there you go. It's not only a fulfilled life, it's a long life too. I know my wife and I had some illness challenges, and we went to daily juicing, vegetable juice as a ritual daily, and it's made a heck of a difference in our lives. So it's often simple things, you know, but I think the key is this. I love the idea of a happiness list, Simone.
I think also, Simone, I don't know, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, like that idea of a routine, like what your day looks like. And I think that, you know, organizations are in a routine, you know, we're in routines in our own lives. And I think that routine kind of holds us back from making big change. And so, and you can think of COVID as an example that this external influence forces you to make a change that you probably wouldn't have done before with like a distributed workforce. But then once you make the change, you realize it's actually not that bad. And so I've been trying to just think lately that if you apply it to a personal level, I think decisions kind of sit on a spectrum from things that you can reverse to things that you can't reverse. Like having a kid, you can't really reverse that, but paint the wall of your favorite, say you paint your house the wrong color, you can repaint it, you can reverse the decision. So, and I think Ian's touched on this in before, like, you know, if something's 80% okay, and you're feeling good with it, then make the decision and just manage the risks on what's left. So that's what kind of resonated with me when you're talking about our lives in a routine and how to make that work for us to get the things that we want.
Absolutely, Donovan. I couldn't agree more. And this is why I'm talking about question your routine. So sit down and actually write out, what does your ideal day look like? Do you want to work 4 hours a day on average, or 5 hours, or 8 hours, or 12 hours? And you know, why? What does that give you? And it is about questioning your very routine. So what I'm saying here is, if you sit down and look at what your ideal day actually looks like, then some of it you may be constrained. You can't necessarily change some of that, but do things that will work your way towards that. And, you know, a typical example being for me is that I regularly take days off. I take about a day a fortnight. I try to take about a day a fortnight off, or a day a week off at times. I'm a big advocate for taking time off, because although I might not be able to work my ideal of maybe 5-6 hours a day, I balance that by taking a day off incredibly regularly, and that sort of works. It balances it all out.
I love all this discussion, because we have the choice to either create the life we desire with intention, or just let life happen. And I love empowering others, having these conversations to empower others to really think about the way we want our lives to look. And I'm doing this short course at the moment about raising frequency, and it's all about forward visioning. So you plan your day ahead. That the next day, what are you doing every hour? How do you want to feel every hour in what you're doing? And while you won't get it right every day, it's actually creating that intention around it. And the more you practice it, the more it becomes.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. It is having that intention.
Ian and Simone, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave because I've got another conference call. But I've found this really useful, and hopefully I'll be able to join again at some other time. And I'll make sure I leave enough time to sit and listen to the whole event. But it's been really good. Thank you.
I'll put you on the invitation list permanently, Tony.
Please, please, Ian.
Okay, good on you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you,
everyone.
Tony.
All I'll be in touch soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
No worries. Brian, you're off mute now.
Yeah, if I could, Simone, I suppose one of the things I've been working on is acknowledging where emotion sits and belongs with things like goal settings. I suppose a few years ago, I'd write a financial goal saying, I want $100,000 in the bank. Whereas now when I'm writing a goal setting, it's about where I am, where, you know, putting a vision forecast. You mentioned 5 years time. In 5 years time, I'm sitting with the sun on my back at Crescent Head sort of surf club. I've you know, whatever it is I've done, and I notice that I've got X amount of dollars in my bank. I feel, you know, a sense of joy and happiness or pride coming up out of, you know, the pit of my stomach, or whatever it is, so that there's no point in having goals or visions or an ideal unless we put some sort of emotion into it to tie us into actually, you know, when I talk about my financial goal, I can literally sense the sun on my back. And I live in Victoria. You know, we got it yesterday, but not again for a while.
One of the interesting things, Brian, in these conversations, and I have a Heart Leadership online community of which Paul and Jamie and Donovan and Simone are part of, and we often talk about a line from Dr. Jill Bolte, who's a neuroscientist, and she says, we're feeling creatures who think. And we're in a world that's gone the other way. And so heart leadership is really hearing your heart first, and then it's listening to your head second. So it's the feeling first, then the thought, which is exactly what you're describing, Brian.
Yeah, I haven't quite got the background before it, but I can certainly put forward that once you actually engage an emotion into sort of forward planning or the goal setting or whatever it is you want to achieve, and this is what some of the guys have mentioned before. I think it was David with his little circle about, you know, what actually makes things go. If someone's good at it and they're not interested, it doesn't matter. If you're challenged in it and you're enjoyed in it and you're actually starting to link emotions to those things of enjoy or joy, challenged, being pushed forward, which is, you know, in all honesty, lacking in a lot of us, and is actually hard to understand. It took me a fair bit to actually understand where the power for that comes from, and then yeah, actually even being brave enough to share how empowering that is in your life or your work life, your social life, you know, wherever you're sitting.
Well, we acknowledge you for being brave enough. This is my prediction, and it's not mine alone. There's one of my favorite authors is a guy by the name of Stephen Faber, and his most recent book is called Love is Just Damn Good Business. I first learned him in the 12 years ago. He wrote a book called The Radical Leap, and in that book he said, "Do what you love in the service of people who love what you do." And so I want to bring love into the equation, Brian. If you're doing what you love in the service of people who love what you do, then life's pretty good, I put to you.
I would reckon that would be an awesome way of spending.
And I think we can all do that. And I see that the world is more and more. In my Heart Leadership book, I talk about love as the first heart quality. And everything pretty much flows from there. And when you think about it, love really is the life force.
Well, this is something that I've dealt with my work for a long time, and it's around emergency response training.
Mm-hmm.
If you try and stand between a parent and, as Simone terms them, their little one, so the parent is in our world in the gym, and the little one is in the creche, it doesn't matter if there's a 10-foot wall of fire there, you're going to have an extremely difficult time stopping the parent getting to their kid. It's not going to happen. It's where we, you know, if it's a brother or a sister, a husband or wife, you're not going to have that innate primal instinct of protection that you do have for your own kids or people within your care. And the older that they become is where it dwindles. But then how do we engage that same strength, that same emotion into other things we do?
Well, interestingly, the ancient Greeks had an answer, Brian. That kind of love that a parent feels for a child, the Greeks called it storge, S-T-O-R-G-E. You're probably familiar with their other descriptions of love, agape in a spiritual sense, but also, you know, eros in a romantic sense. The one I think that is most applicable to the workplace, the Greeks called it philia, P-H-I-L-I-A, which is to have affectionate regard. And I think we need more of that in the workplace, don't you? I think we need more love in the world. I mean, the song says what the world needs now is love, sweet love, because that's the only thing that there's just too little of. I don't necessarily think there's too little of it. I just think it's maybe not seen enough. And I encourage you all, and I'm sure that Simone's this kind of leader, as are others on the call. We need to make love more visible. This love in the sense of philia or affectionate regard, we need to make that more visible in the world. And the consequence will be a better world.
Yep.
Couldn't agree more, Ian.
I hold hope for it, Ian.
Well, I think we need to more than hold hope, Jamie. I think we need to be the ones,
the leaders,
that take the stand. Because if not you, then who?
No, exactly right, and
that's
sort of
that's
the
the kind
approach
of thing
I've been taking.
You know, and I know that you do this already, and I'm sure you all do this already. And I think we really need to support one another and encourage one another. And what Simone is leading us through is a way to be in the world where this is possible. We can't do it alone. I first talked about love in the workplace 30 years ago, and people thought I was on drugs or had religion or both. It's easier now. It's still not, you know, simple or easy doesn't mean it's not hard sometimes. But I really think that if we bond together and we stand together, because the world's not divided like some political people would have us believe. The world's not divided. We need to celebrate diversity. We need to celebrate difference. but we need to take a stand. Otherwise, the folk that believe the world is divided or all the rest of it, they're gonna continue to control us. And I'm personally not going to stand for that. And I'm encouraging everyone on the call, you know, we're the ones. Because if it's not us, then who is it?
I'm in thinking about that, Ian. It's about for me, it's about shifting the mindset, that competition mindset. For me, if we support everyone to thrive in their own authentic way, using their own unique set of strengths and passion, there's room for us all to shine. So by lifting everyone up in their authentic way, we can all bring out the best in ourselves and in a greater good.
Yes, couldn't agree more. The Greeks, again, they had a wonderful saying. They say a rising tide lifts all ships. So it's the same thing, you know. This is why essence. It's seeing, it's sometimes unearthing, but it's mainly magnifying and enhancing people's essence. And Simone does that. I know, Jamie, you do that. Paul, you do that. David, you do that. And we need more of it. Simone, one of the things that, one of the questions I had that comes to mind is, I know we need to start where we are, but what do you recommend to folk as a way to get started? Is it a happiness list, or, you know, where do we get started? People watching this recording, you know, may not have even thought about this before. Where do we get started?
Absolutely. So it is literally taking the time out for yourself. It is literally watering that plant. What is it from a purpose perspective? And it can be as simple as sitting down with a piece of paper, or however you best pull this out of your mind, whether it's on a computer or on tech or on a piece of mind, or just sitting and just thinking about it, is, well, how do you uncover your essence? Asking yourself some of those questions. What are you called to? What stirs or moves you? What do you feel like you might have responsibility in the world for, that can be externally to the world or within your own world as well? And sitting down going, well, what do I find joy in? What is my happiness list? And, you know, you may or may not be able to write it all down in, you know, a single sitting of that happiness list, but you can have a few chops at it and a few goes at it and having a look at it. And even sitting down and going, well, I might be sitting in a routine right now, but what would my ideal day look like? It's about refining that. And from a vision board perspective as well, sitting out going, well, what do you want to look like in 5 years' time? What's really important to you? And one of the things from my perspective is growth and development. How am I looking after myself? And really, growth and development is really important in my view as well. So how am I looking after myself spiritually? And when we think about spiritually, it's not, is there life after death? But is there life before death? You know, what is it that brings you that inner calm and balance and that peace? What does that actually look like? Some people may do meditation. Some people may go swimming, because it is that motion of, you know, some form of exercise, whatever that might be, to actually, you know, bring you peace and calm. It might be reading a story, getting yourself lost in reading a story. What does that look like? Mentally and emotionally, how do you look after yourself? How do you reflect? What is it that you do? And physically as well, because you need to also look after the physical body as well. It might be something as simple as walking. And that can also assist you spiritually and mentally. It could be some form of exercise, healthy eating, whatever that might be. Sit down and ask yourself the question, is work growing you? So, is it growing you? In what ways? If not, where can it grow you? Where can you be grown in? Is your personal life growing you as well? And if not, what could grow you? What are your interests? What are you interested in learning about that you may not already know about? It doesn't have to necessarily cost a lot, but it's about then, researching that. And when I talk about cost, I don't talk about just the physical cost, monetary cost. I also talk about that time cost as well. There's one thing in life is that we all have the same amount of time. So how are you going to spend it? Time is almost the limiting factor as well. Everyone has 24 hours a day. What does that 24 hours a day look like for you? And how do you want to spend that? What does that look like? So it's about being able to ask yourself all of those questions. Another question you can ask yourself is, if money was no object, what would you be doing? And it's about thinking, therefore, about what does that actually look like? What could be your legacy piece, if you want to have a legacy or not? And it doesn't have to be big. Your legacy piece can be your family. Growing up your children or your grandchildren to be the best people that they are. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be Prime Minister of America. It can be focused purely as, my legacy is my children, or whatever that looks like. And what is it that helps to grow and nurture yourself in all of this space as well?
These are wonderful questions.
So I'm really, I go back to it's incumbent on us to share the love and grow the love, and I then go back to my 15-year-old son and I go, so how do I instill a young person bringing up in this current life and environment and trying to get them to be a leader, and understand the importance of it, because in my generation, nearly 50, so yeah, I think we understand it and the importance of it, and it's more important now than ever. But how do we get to that? God, could be a 10-year-old through to 25-year-old and try and get them to understand the importance that they'll make in the future.
Maybe, Jamie, it's not instill. Maybe it's lead.
Yeah.
Like I remember, my son's a leader in the construction industry, and recently his project won an award. And while he was making the speech accepting the award on his award on behalf of his team, our daughter-in-law sent us a movie of that moment. And I tell you what, it filled Carol and I with a lot of pride to see our son in that space. But it also reflected back when he was a teenager, when he and I were at war, and we didn't see eye to eye, and nothing was going well. And I realised, how I didn't have to teach him things. What I had to do is role model things. And I think that was a shift for me as a parent. It's not about telling or instilling, it's about being.
I think one of the really important things with that, Ian, and I'm going through challenges with a 16 and an 18-year-old daughters, is that all you can do, you can't solve their problems. You've just got to give them the skills to solve their own problems. And this is also the same steps with evolution into turning into what sort of young adults and leaders or contribution to society that they do. It is about giving them the skills to do that.
Yeah.
Not doing it for them, and that's hard as a parent.
Couldn't agree more. The greatest gift my wife and I gave our two children, we have a son and a daughter who are as different as chalk and cheese, but we're proud to say that they both live our values, but in their own way. And the greatest thing we did for them was to let them be. really difficult, isn't it, as a parent to do that, particularly when they're teenagers or even little people, Simone. But
well, you see them making mistakes, and you've just got to let them go and make that mistake within reason.
I suggest going back. I saw an interview with Paul McCartney a couple of days ago where he talked about how he wrote the song Let It Be. It turns out his mother's name is Mary, which might give you a different connotation into the song. But I recommend just having a listen to it again. Because often the secret to leading a fulfilled life, I'll put this to you, Simone, as a bit of a question. Maybe the secret sometimes is we've got to make lists and we've got to do things, all the things that you've talked about, but maybe we've got to spend time just letting it be as well.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And it is about letting it be as well. So there's all of this stuff that you can do, but often you'll see me just sitting. And that's about it.
You know what? I'm in the stage of life now where, and I just realized this the other day, that I spend more time doing nothing than I do anything else. And it's a key reason to why I'm as contented as I've ever been.
There's a great quote that is awesome as a parent. I've got teenage daughters as well. Tell me and I forget, and I will forget. Teach me and I may remember. Involve me and I will learn. And that whole just letting our young people, they've got their own journeys to take, and letting them, they have to make their own mistakes to learn stuff. It's just part of that letting go, as hard as it can be, seeing your kids hurt. But just letting them actually experience things is how they will learn. And being the best versions of ourselves that we can be, and being honest when we make mistakes, which we all do. So there's no greater courage than apologising to your children for making a mistake.
No, I think William Shakespeare gave the greatest piece of advice ever when he said, "This above all else, to thine own self be true." Because when we are true to that one of a kind human being that each of us is, we can't help but be good for other people who are on that same journey. All the great writers, David.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it earlier, actually, when we were talking about what things you like to do and your list of things that makes it a good day. If you're having trouble working out what that looks like, sometimes what helps is, I think Bev might have mentioned it before indirectly, is working out what makes a bad day and what don't you like to do, and what things do you not want to do, and like in terms of what's your purpose, what isn't your purpose too, sometimes helps. Like whilst that goes completely against what I said earlier around strengths and what you like to do, it's sometimes important to work out, all right, I'm good at that, but I don't like it. So in some ways you want to not include that in your best day or your best week or whatever you're planning to make out what your list is going to be, which will then obviously frame what your purpose ends up being, which is sort of indirectly what led me to make a bit of a change here recently with my work, in terms of wasn't grabbing me, wasn't sort of feeling it anymore. So it made me think, right, what else is out there? And it led me to make a change of work for me recently, and it came off the back of what isn't as opposed to what is. Hopefully I'll be able to work out what is. I haven't actually quite nutted that just yet, but I think writing the lists and trying to do some of the things you've talked about today is really important, but equally trying to work out what isn't it as well. In terms of, like Ian said there before about let it be, sometimes you got to let it go as well, in terms of the bits that you don't like or you are holding on to that are no longer working. Let it be and let it go, and then that might be how you find out what you want to do.
I couldn't agree more with that sentiment as well, David. And it is about letting it go. It's you know, and in some ways, once again, you can also appreciate that too. Thank whatever it is for that life learning or that carrying you to that point. But then it's as simple as just letting it go.
Now we're sort of coming into the last 20 minutes of our conversation. Now I'm wondering, Lynn, Darren, or Colin, any reflections that you might want to share? You don't have to, but want to give you the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm happy to share some. And I guess one of my observations through my work life, and I guess I'm getting more towards the end of my work life, relates to the let it go bit. There's a time where I've managed sites or people or groups of people, and there's a size where you need to be able to let go. You think you want to have a hand or an involvement in everything, but I'm learning more, I guess, that you mentioned before about role modeling as a parent and as a leader in your workplace. To me, the way you behave and role model in a workplace is a really high percentage of your leadership. Understanding your values and the values of the organisation, making sure your staff and your teams understand that, and then let them make decisions. And I see it a lot in our current times where we're super busy at the moment trying to reopen facilities, and staff are probably working long hours, and we do need to be able to let go and share that workload, and entrust our staff to be able to make the right decisions. We've put them in the position of leadership. Make sure they understand the values, clearly articulate where we want to head, and let them go to it.
That's so beautifully articulated there, Cole. I couldn't agree more. And then what you see is that you also see the staff living the values in their own way and bring it to life in their own way as well, and often to better outcomes than if you were overseeing it, yes, the whole end to end yourself as well, because they're bringing their true self and their own and their values and how they're living the values out within that environment as well.
Yeah, and I'm really lucky. I think I've inherited a really good team, and I'm constantly surprised. I've got a big list of things to do over the next few days, so we're right to reopen. But already I go, Daniel Wood's already done this. He's already jumped in and taken the initiative because they understand what has to happen. And it might not necessarily always fall in their area of responsibility, but they've worked out what's important and what needs to be done and understand the bigger picture and get on with it.
It's a brilliant example there as well, Colin, so thank you. And it's good to see you're at work too. I'm assuming you're in the office.
And I did have my mask on.
I know you didn't get to introduce yourself at the start, Colin. Did you want to do a quick 30-second spiel of who you are?
Yeah, Colin Hunt. I'm the manager of LeisureLink. I've only been with the city for about 3 years, I guess, and I'm enjoying the challenge. And I think perhaps coming in from a different perspective, perhaps than a lot of longer-term city employees. So I'm keen to, I guess, challenge the way we've always done things. So, yeah, and apologies, I was late. I was on one of those phone calls to try and organise the next couple of days.
Thanks, Colin. Darren, I know you went off mute for a moment there.
Yeah, I was just waiting for Colin Lynn to go. So, look, I've been a bit quiet. Sorry. Thanks, Ian, for calling me in, and Simone for taking the session. It's been great just to listen, just to hear some other insights. I think I've tried to bring my heart to everything that I've done as a leader. And I continue to try and do that to get the best out of everybody else and get the best out of myself. And it's good just to hear some people's thoughts on things that even Cole, what you're talking about is you don't have to be in control of everything, every moment of every day. You can let others shine. You don't have to be the person shining. You can help others shine. And I really like that. And, you know, when we're talking before about, and Bev, you talked about, you know, role modeling for your children. I've got my son, 21-year-old son. I'm trying to help him be the best, and I'm finding telling him what to do is not working at all, but getting in there and doing something with him. For example, mowing the lawn, showing him how to do it with him, making him part of it. We actually made a beef stew together on Monday night of all things, just to do it together. So that was, I actually thought, what brings me joy? Well, that brought me joy. Something 10 years ago I would have thought, that's the last thing I'm going to do with my son is make a beef stew, but that's what we did. And I mean, just the last thing I sort of, Harry Taylor, Geelong football player, someone I admire greatly, you know, his parting shot was he always tried to act with integrity and authenticity. And that's really resonated with me. When I read that, I thought, you know, I try to emulate that myself. So that was good. So thanks for calling on me. This has been a great session just to listen and sort of soak it all in. So I'll throw over to you, Lenny.
Thanks, Darren. Am I still on mute?
No, we can hear you, Lynn.
Good. Sorry, it's my old laptop I'm working with today. I wasn't sure if Zoom is allowed on the Surface Pro, but that's all right. So I guess, you know, I feel that I love to build relationships with the staff that I'm leading, or just people that I become involved with. Like as a team, I actually put myself into their shoes and think, okay, how are they feeling about things? And I feel like I'm a really good communicator. I touch base as often as I can. You know, just the rundown, like, hey, how's it going? You know, and I also encourage them to think, what would you do about this email? How about you draft it, send it to me, but think about yourself writing this email to yourself. How does it make you feel when you're asking something? So yeah, and look, I've had a couple of meetings, like I've met staff that Geelong Cup Day, oh, we're not working, let's go for a walk up the Yuyangs instead, and we can have kind of a little brief meeting there and love it and have a coffee. You know, I think just that personal touch, or I don't know, it really makes a difference. So, and I received an email the other day from a girl. I've hardly had any communication with her. She worked in city services, and she thanked me for, oh, thank you for helping me with, you know, spending time with the roster model, and I hope we can get to work in the future down, you know, I'm leaving this job now, but I really want to work with you in the future. And I'm like, oh, geez, I didn't really think that I made such an impact. So there you go. Just, yeah, just, I don't know, just feeling like they feel, and yeah, having empathy, and yeah, and taking interest in what they do. How's your kids? How's your mum? What do you know, did you buy a new dog? How cute? Can I see a photo? You know, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's how I roll, I guess. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with that, Lynn, as well. So I guess as we're closing, what I'm interested in, everyone, is what are you going to take with you moving forward? What does that look like?
The reason I had to go off there before, I was writing out my resignation, Simone, because I'm moving to the Bahamas. I'm creating, that's where you're making me so happy. I've got to go to this new place. So, you know, a bit like Brian, this has always been one of my favourite backgrounds. So I'm off, because that's where its happiness is. Moving to the Gold Coast, getting a new job, starting a new family. Yeah. I think that's, yeah, it's it just makes me rethink a lot of things, and probably keeps me rounded that I'm on the right track with most of it. You know, I've lengthy conversations with Ian about where I'm at in life and what's going on and changes that I've made, and as I said, from my perspective personally, sadly people have lost lives and jobs and everything, but COVID's been a wonderful rounding thing for my life, my work life, my home life. And, you know, you talk about knowing where you want to be in the next 5 years. I probably didn't know that, last year or the start of this year, but I'm very clear about where that is and where I want to be and how I'm going to continue to improve and get there. So yeah, it's been a wonderful session for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. That is just so wonderfully articulated there. And what you've just done there is, in a way, just sat there and appreciated what you've had over the last hour and 20 in order for you to just, in a way, let it be. But just have that happiness and joy in the current moment as well. So thank you.
Silence.
I think, Simone, thank you for today. It's been really great listening as well. But I think just appreciating the now and being thankful for what I have, and a bit like Jamie, thankful that I am in a good place. And even though we're stuck in Singapore for the foreseeable future, it's safe. The weather's good. My family's in a good school. Blessed with a great team who I can still give a lot to here. So a lot to be appreciative for in the moment.
Another beautiful articulation there, Paul. So thank you.
Thanks, Simone, for today. I think it's been probably timely for me with a few things coming up, and I've got a bit going on with some other groups that I'm helping out. So certainly a lot of takeaways. I think in a lot of ways it's sort of a bit of reinforcement of probably some thinking on the right path. So I reckon a lot of us are all sort of on the same page with a lot of these topics. So that was interesting as well. So thanks again. I might jump off in a sec because I've got to get going, but appreciate your presentation today, and thanks again, Ian, for organising.
Thank you, David, and fantastic to see you after a little bit of a hiatus as well, and fantastic, and congratulations on your new role that you are going to. That's just such a fantastic news as well.
No worries, thanks a lot.
Just before you go, David, a line. I learned a new line this week. As some of you know, my Heart Leadership book is with the editor, but one of the stories that is in there, and Simone, just a reminder, you've got a couple of your stories still to. I know you're on it, but in the story that one of my clients shared with me, the line is, he's choosing now over normal. And I thought that was just a wonderful insight, and it kind of summarizes my take with me from you leading us through, Simone. I don't want to go back to normal ever, but I am going to choose now.
Thank you, Ian. That's a really good, I guess, encapsulation over the last nearly hour and a half as well.
Thanks, Ian. I'll get going. I'll catch you later.
See you, David.
Bye.
Sorry, Bev. Oh, no, you've got a little person coming in. You're welcome to speak, though, even with the little person.
Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
She's not that little. And no, just reaffirming what David said, it's been a great, sort of reaffirming that I love that reaffirming that I'm on the right path. And I think it's just really consolidated for me. I think with everyone I meet moving forward, there's two things I want to ask them. What do they love to do? And what are their strengths? And if you can get, the combination for me is our superpowers. Yep. And if you can help people identify what their superpowers are, they're more more inclined to head in that direction. So it's been fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bev. And that's a beautiful articulation. I hadn't actually thought about it being superpowers. Like I'd always thought about that beautiful merging of what do they love to do and what are their strengths, but I never actually thought about calling it their superpowers, because it really, truly is superpowers. Would anyone else like to share what they're going to, what they've taken away with for the last nearly hour and a half, and what they'll be doing moving forward?
Simone? Yes.
Yeah.
I think, thank you. I think what you're just reaffirming what we should be doing. We need to spend some time on self-care. And whenever I get a bit anxious and I think I'm not going to cope with a certain situation, I just really take some deep breaths and just count my breaths, like, and then you think, oh, I can do this. You know, I think just meditation's good too, just starting to learn to do a bit more of that. It helps with my asthma too, like the deep breathing. But yeah, I just think we need to take some more time to think and be in the present. And I like that, let it be, or like the saying, throw it up to the universe and don't worry about it for a while, just let it be. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you don't take the time to water that plant, plant being you, who is?
Exactly.
Brian, I know you went off mute there, so.
Yeah, I think this has been a wonderful opportunity to actually contemplate and work on self in a, an environment that's very new to me. I've never worked with Ian before, and I suppose in some ways allowing myself to be a little bit vulnerable in front of my boss. Hi, Simone, haven't met you, but yeah, my boss, my work peers and colleagues and those sorts of things. So it's an empowering exercise to be able to do something in this in what is I hope a very safe environment. And I've got quite a few pages of bits and pieces that I've written down. And I think one of the things that is coming to a little bit of an aha moment for me and the work that I've been doing on my own personal development and goal setting, and I've got them sort of documented and I play with them very regularly, is perhaps some of mine are a little bit too futuristic in sitting there going in 5 years' time, I can tell you, but where am I missing steps? Where are my milestones along the way? I love Darren's help others shine. I think that's sort of a paradigm shift for myself where I'm very happy to step into the background and give others the chance to do it, but it's taken me a long time to get to that stage. So this has created a lot of alternate thinking, a few challenges. So thank you very much, because it's certainly one of those things that David said before is challenging. Where are we getting extended and challenged? And I think there's quite a bit of here that has done that or is in the process or sown the seeds that I've got to water that will grow. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Brian. It's really heartwarming to hear, I guess, some of your reflections, and you've just explained that you felt very vulnerable in those moments as well, and this is certainly very much a safe place in my mind.
That's exactly why I unmuted myself, Simone. Yeah, Brian, this is a wonderful, safe place. The people that have been regularly in this community have shared some, very personal and private things and been able to, to get support and talk through them. And it's probably one of the safest environments from a peers perspective or a group perspective I think I've ever spent in my life, to be honest. So well done on that.
Thank you, Jamie, and looking forward to having lunch with you tomorrow, mate, as well.
Wow.
Yes, bring your credit card.
First time we've been able to have lunch in person. We're doing an Ocean Grove thing tomorrow. So,
Yes,
but
Wonderful.
thank you for all for your words, and that really makes me feel good in the heart too, because that is the pure intention of these, that it is a place where people can come to and feel safe and able to be vulnerable. So my heart is singing at your words, Brian. And it's probably the moment just to mention next time. I'll invite you all next time, but our special guest next time is Colin James, who is one of the great educators on the planet. And Colin's going to be talking to us next month about what COVID has taught us about communication. And that will be another enlightening session. But Simone, today, let me say namaste.
Namaste to you too as well, Ian. And I really want to say thank you to everyone for your time, your expertise, your opinions, your vulnerabilities as well, because it's been a real growing conversation for everyone, but also myself included. And I also have a few notes from today too that I'll be taking back within my own work and my own life too.
I think we're all in that camp.
Out of ink.
Perfect.
So thank you all once again, but especially thank you, Simone, for taking the time to prepare for this and to share some of these wonderful insights with it. It really has been an afternoon of discovering the keys to a fulfilled life.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations.
Thanks,
Well
Thanks,
done.
Simone.
Thanks,
No worries.
Thanks, Ian.
Yes,
See you all
See you all
next time.
later.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.